Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I'm your host, Shawn Needham, along with my wonderful wife, Janet, and we are streaming live from Scottsdale, Arizona. And Happy New Year to you guys. And that's what we're going to be discussing is New Year's resolutions. Janet, how do you want to start with that?
So, the first thing I think everybody should consider is don't make your resolution or goal too unattainable. Make it something that's very simple and then build on it. Most of the time, we're going to start hearing people talk about their health, which is great. That's the space that Shawn and I are in is health and wellness. But make things simple. And then not only do you want to write it down about what your goal is, but you want to figure out what steps you need to take to achieve it. Um, and maybe the other thing that happens to us every year is that we don't celebrate the small victories that we have along the way getting to the goal we want to obtain. I think for us and our family, our goal this year, and we already started a little bit on it, is we were on a mission and still are to declutter our house. We're um, empty nesters, and so there are a lot of things that we were just holding on. And I think stuff and clutter in your house can affect us. And then, we were very happy once we saw our garage look better or our kitchen area starting to look better, and we celebrated it. Like, we were excited. We'd come home from work and say, "Hey, doesn't this look great?" So I think writing it down, making it something that's achievable, figuring out how you're going to attack it and achieve those things, and then celebrate the victories along the way. It's just a good way to start.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was very, it was very a relief when we were cleaning out our house. And a lot of stuff, and I'm not saying stuff is bad, but if you're not using stuff, donate it. And we had a lot of stuff from when we weren't using anymore from when our kids were younger. And, it felt good to take to the Goodwill and donate it. We had 5 truckloads we donated to the Goodwill, and I'm hoping somebody's going to use it. So, yeah, it did feel really good, actually. So what about health resolutions or goals?
There again, you need to make it attainable, make it simple. Start where you are. Many times people feel so overwhelmed, and it's like, start with one thing. If you have an exercise goal, make it easy and achievable and then build on it. Start somewhere. If it's just walking around the block or walking for a certain amount of time, just build on it. It doesn't have to be a marathon. Many times we set ourselves up for failure by making that goal way too big. And it doesn't matter where you are in your health journey. Many times people think that moving is a bad thing, but once you start moving, you can build on it. So even just walking around your house to start with something simple and build on it. I always tell people too, if they have a pet, that dog is going to be so happy that you made some changes. So celebrate with your pet. Make it achievable and work towards it. Moving, to me, and movement is probably one of the biggest gifts we can give ourselves for our mental and emotional as well as our physical health. And if you can, by all means, go outside. There's so much to the outside that helps us mentally and physically. It helps with a lot of different neurotransmitters that we don't even think about because we're stimulated in different ways. So that would be, as far as the health journey, maybe a great starting point.
Yeah, when Janet says start where you're at, let's say you're doing nothing now. So, if you have no kind of movement that is scheduled in your life, no kind of exercise that's scheduled in your life, seriously, start by walking 5 minutes a day and say you're going to do that for a week. I'm going to walk every day for at least 5 minutes, and do that for a week. And then, like Janet says, build on it. Then the second week, do 10 minutes, and then maybe do that for 2 or 3 weeks. And then the second month, do, 20 minutes, or increase intensity. Instead of walking, say you're going to, after you do that for a month, you walk for a month, you're going to jog or walk really fast, pick a different pace. And then, eventually maybe work yourself up to, you know, focusing on sprinting for 10 seconds and then walking for 50 seconds, something like that. Just start where you're at and build on it. Because you don't want to start out with a New Year's resolution or a goal that, I'm going to do HIIT training 5 days a week. And you realize 3 days into it, or even 2 days into it, that that's just not possible. And then you just quit totally. So set your goals small and then progress them from there.
I think that is really important too, that when we're talking about exercise to maintain it, for us, we found that, if we can exercise earlier in the day, we are more likely not to skip it. Like the goal is achieved if you start it earlier in the day. I know from my gym workouts, most of the time I try to do it in the morning before work. So that routine keeps me accountable. And the other thing that we do, and if you're walking, you don't really have to do this, but we lay out our work clothes. We get our work clothes, and Shawn's really good about this. Like he prepares for it. Just having that laying there ready to go helps you achieve. It's like a win. You're ready to go. You're going to go do the gym workout or the ride or the walk or whatever. And you're ready. And so that takes one less thing away from your mind, from not achieving that goal. So, prepare a little bit, and that makes it so much better.
It's just one less barrier. So that's one of the reasons we're going to do a ride after 2-hour bike ride after we get off this program, and we do an Instagram live actually. And we have our clothes already laid out, because it's just one less barrier to start the workout. And especially if you have to unpack your clothes from somewhere else, in another room or whatever, it can be a barrier. And then you can say, I'll just not do it today. But if your clothes are already laid out, it's like, makes it a lot easier to just go ahead and start it. So one of my goals for the year is I'm writing a new book. It's called Lies I Learned in Pharmacy School and How to Escape the Grasp of Big Pharma. And for those of you that follow Jan and I, you understand that Jan and I are two pharmacists that don't believe in drugs to treat most chronic long-term disease. And that's why I'm writing a book, because I want to educate and empower you guys that, you don't need to be on drug therapy the rest of your life, like many people in the medical industry or the media say. Just as we age, we get sicker and we need more drugs. That's just not necessarily the case. So if you would like information on my book, text LIES, LIES, to 833-495-3426. Text LIES to 833-495-3426, and you can opt in for updates. I'll also stream it down there on the bottom of the screen. My goal for that book is to release it December 2026. Trying to think of what year it is. I'm going to have to get used to saying that now. And again, I've got baby steps there. I basically there's 12 chapters, and my goal is to get 1 to 2 chapters done a month. I don't want to wait until December to get all the chapters done. So it's probably more likely I'm going to get 2 chapters done a month. And the book will be mostly written by July or so, probably by September for sure, after the edits. And then we can work on the final proofreading and all that. So it's definitely ready to release and promote in December. Again, there's just a list of little baby steps that we're doing to get that book done. And of course, Janet is writing the opening chapter number 1, basically the disillusion of what she's seen as a pharmacist over the last 30 plus years. She also, one of her passions is osteoporosis. So she's writing a chapter in there on osteoporosis, because how we treat women and men for that matter with osteoporosis is just insane. And that there is no one in America today should get osteoporosis. That is just a fact. And when we see people walking around, all hunched over and they're osteoporotic, it makes us sad because the healthcare system has failed them. Janet.
Very true. That's one place I think that brought us to do a podcast and interview different guests and to do information for people is to actually get tools in people's hands so they can make informed decisions to help themselves in their health journey. And like Shawn said, um, we've failed our patients in the healthcare system by not putting out good information and just keeping it streamlined into the only option is, become sicker with more and more drug therapy. So we're excited to get the book out, and we do talk about many different topics. Osteoporosis is one of them, and many topics that we touch on are preventable as we live throughout our life. Movement, walking is a huge prevention towards osteoporosis. It's weight bearing for women, uh, weight resistance as well as for men, but women are far less likely to engage in that. And our bones are not static. We need to keep them moving as well as our muscles to have a healthy journey. And it keeps our mobility and our ability to thrive and enjoy things around us. So if you're making goals, find your why. For me, osteoporosis is something that's very debilitating and can be very painful, but it could be some other chronic illness. It could be diabetes, it could be heart disease, it could be arthritis, it could be lots of different things. And many times in this journey on this earth, we are not getting the information out for you to make informed decisions for you. So hopefully this book will help. And also some of our podcasts in the past, check them out.
And we have a comment coming in, Jennifer and Gillespie. Thank you for watching, Jennifer, and thank you for the kind words. I can't wait to read it. You two are such fighters. We are lucky to have doctors like you. So thank you for the kind words. I do want to correct you, though. Jan and I are not doctors. We were one of the last class of bachelors of pharmacists to graduate, and we are completely proud of our degree. And we honestly don't think the doctorate degree really adds much to pharmacy, but that's a whole nother story. We just want to correct you because we don't want to be called doctors. And I personally don't think most pharmacists should be called doctors. In a clinical setting, the doctors are MDs and DOs that went to medical school. But thank you for that comment, Jennifer. And we would love for you to follow us. Text that number so you can follow the updates. In fact, the first chapter is written right now, right, Janet? And you're kind of going through some edits and or some editing the content. So the first chapter is definitely written, and then we'll go from there. I'm super excited because our goal of this podcast is to educate and empower individuals to take charge of their own health. And when I wrote a book, my first book that I wrote in 2019, or it was released in 2019, was, let me see here if I can get it up there. Trying to figure this out here. The first book I wrote back in 2019, it was released in December of 2019. And as you guys might recall, I'm sure you recall, that was right before COVID. And it was perfect timing for my book to come out because it was called Sickened: How the Government Ruined Healthcare. And boy, did they ruin it with COVID. And then How to Fix It. And it was a #1 seller on Amazon. It was released Christmas Eve of 2019. And, this podcast, one of the things we want to do with this podcast was promote that book to get information out there so we can educate people about their health. Our healthcare system is so bad about fighting a disease and taking a drug to treat it. And so there's so many people out there, whether they have type 2 diabetes or whether they have high blood pressure, that they think that the answer to their disease is a long-term commitment to some drug that's out there, which is very disempowering. We want people to realize that their diseases mostly can be reversed. Type 2 diabetes, I think, is one of the ones that, I'm not going to say it's the easiest, but but it's definitely the most powerful. How do you want to say that? It's definitely the one that's most diet related. Type 2 diabetes is a carbohydrate, like all diabetes mellitus, whether it's type 1 or type 2, is a carbohydrate metabolism problem. And it's very important to minimize your carbohydrates, or if you're eating carbohydrates. Janet and I eat a few carbohydrates. Why? Well, yesterday we rode our bikes for two and a half hours. Okay. So we were burning a lot of carbohydrates, because even the keto people, they might hate you out there or hate us out there, but you know, the major fuel that we burn when we exercise is glucose, which is a carbohydrate. We would die without glucose in our bodies. I get there's a lot of different ways we can make glucose in our bodies without ingesting glucose. Um, but if you're burning glucose, you might need carbohydrates. If you're burning it for hours at a time, which Janet and I do, that this week we've got over 14 hours of workouts scheduled. We're going to be needing carbohydrates. But yes, we'll be eating lots of protein too. Um, and we'll still be trying to meet our protein goals. We do have a comment here from Ann Allstat. Can you talk about your healthcare insurance program? I would love to. And I do want to mention too, Ann, if you go to our my book, Sickened, How the Government Ruined Healthcare and How to Fix It, it goes in depth into this program. But we use a health sharing ministry, and let's call it a health sharing program, because that's what they really are. We do use a ministry because ours is faith-based. We use what's called Christian healthcare. Let me see, Jan, if you can talk about that while I try to get this online.
So we've used others in the past. Samaritan was one of them. But the reason we chose the Christian Health Ministry in the program we have is just based on what our needs are for our family. Since we own a pharmacy, we don't opt into any coverage or any help with that. But we do a very straightforward monthly service, and the one we have, and I'm not really sure, ours is, I believe, 196 for both of us, but it might be changing after the first of the year, but still very affordable. So we pay for our own visits to the provider directly and upfront. Okay, basic coverage would be 203 now after the first of the year. So we pay for our office visits, our lab visits, our dental visits, all that upfront. If something is catastrophic, like when our son had a compound fracture and had to have surgery and all that, they do pay you very quickly, and then you pay the facility or the hospital or surgical center directly. So we just do a very basic coverage, and we have even with Samaritan, we had one of our sons broke his wrist. So we had interaction with both of those as far as payment, and each one's a little bit different as how they disperse. But in both cases, we were very happy. We called and we actually got humans on the phone, and we didn't have to sit there and wait for somebody to pick up the line. Each time we had interactions with either Christian ministries or the Samaritan Healthcare Sharing Program. People were very knowledgeable about what services they offer and what levels. And again, it just depends on where you are. Samaritan does have some coverage for family if you're planning to have a family. And so, the levels are different depending on your needs, but they're very affordable in their monthly payments. And, it depends on how you want to do this, but we do just a monthly renewal each month.
And here's, I'm assuming Samaritan Ministries. Both of those are faith-based. Like Janet said, we had claims with Samaritan Ministries and Christian Healthcare Ministries, and both of them worked seamlessly. We saved thousands and thousands of dollars on our healthcare bill because of it. You get to choose what doctor you go to. There's no in-network. So you get to choose a doctor. You get to choose what's covered. Like Janet says, We have basic coverage. The basic is most basic as possible. And one of the reasons we went from Samaritan to Christian ministries is because at the time, Samaritan Ministries didn't have a plan that you could opt out of maternity coverage. Well, Janet and I had 2 teenage boys at the time, and we were not going to have any more kids. So we wanted a plan where we could opt out of maternity coverage, and it saved us a lot of money. Our monthly payment went from $450 a month to like $100 a month. So we chose that, and with our plan also, not only do we get to choose our doctor and what's covered, but we have the most basic coverage you can get, because we want to cover the our son broke his leg, or he broke his wrist, because we had that happen both times. So we wanted that to be covered. So, when it's a $48,000 hospital bill, we're not stuck with the bill. But we don't have any doctor coverage. We pay for the doctor cash. By the way, going to a doctor that accepts cash and gives you cash discounts is very important. I think going to a doctor that doesn't accept insurance is going to save you a lot of money, and they'll be working for you, not the insurance company. We don't have vision coverage. We don't have prescription coverage. You guys should know from following us that we think prescription coverage is unnecessary and a waste of money. Most prescriptions that are out there, you don't need to be on long term, because you can reverse your disease by changing your lifestyle. We don't have dental coverage. An honest dentist will tell you that dental coverage is a waste of money. Pay things cash, save your money. If you have a major thing, pay cash for it. So that's one of the ways we save money. I think one of the things that people understand about insurance is that health insurance works like no other insurance works. Insurance is supposed to be for the unexpected. Well, routine doctor visits, that's not unexpected. That would be like covering the gas in your car or covering the brakes in your car for your car insurance. That's ridiculous. That's why healthcare insurance is so expensive, is because it's covering routine things like monthly prescriptions and monthly doctor visits or quarterly doctor visits, whatever that is. Insurance should really cover the unexpected, and that's how you get cheap insurance. The problem with traditional health insurance is after Obamacare, I write about this in my book, Sickened, they are told exactly what to cover at what price, basically. So, for instance, in Washington State, you cannot find an insurance plan that doesn't cover maternity coverage. So Jan and I would be paying for maternity coverage, yet we don't need it. That's a complete waste of money. That would be like us, paying for, I can't even think of something, but, paying for glass coverage on our car, and we don't want it, because we think it'd be just cheaper to pay for the windshield ourselves. So, it's important that you have choice. And when you pick traditional health insurance, Premier, Blue Cross, United, whatever that is, you are picking, or you go to the exchanges, you are picking a government-based insurance. There's no such thing as private insurance anymore. It is so regulated by the government, whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, or Premier Blue Cross, it is government insurance, and they are telling you, they are dictating your health care. We don't want that. We want to be liberated from that. We want to make our own healthcare choices. That's why we pick a health sharing ministry. Now, there are some of them out there that are non-faith based. In Washington State, they are outlawed. That's a whole other story. I mean, crazy. It shows you how crazy politics are in states. But there's Sedera, there's Zion. Those are non-faith based. I can't think of some. There's a lot of them out there. Just Google healthcare sharing plans. Liberty Medical is another one. MediShare is another one. I'm not a fan of Liberty Medical. I'm just saying that. What else am I missing? Can you think of some more?
No, but there's probably.
And there's more popping up all the time. It's a good thing. And we need to keep these legal. We need to make sure that they're legal, because insurance companies don't like them. Hospitals and the healthcare system that is profiting off insurance companies, they don't like them. In fact, there's been a law in Washington State that it passed that it's illegal for a hospital to give you a discount if you have a healthcare, if you have a health sharing ministry, which is just shows you how evil hospitals are. Um, and we had an instance when our son broke his leg about, negotiating with the hospital, and it was just evil. If they can't be transparent on pricing, what else are they hiding? You have to ask yourself that. I hope that answered your question. And please keep the questions coming. We love to answer questions. That's why we're here. So keep them coming. What else on resolutions, Shannon?
Resolutions. Big one is food.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't talked about diet. Usually people decide to go on a diet the first of the year. There again, I'm going to just, reiterate what we talked about with some of the other resolutions. Keep it simple. My easiest thing is to shop the perimeter, fresh whole foods. The less that it comes out of a box or a can, the better off I think we are. The other thing that we try to keep in mind is if it doesn't rot, if it doesn't expire very quickly, right? Then probably we shouldn't be ingesting it. It's kind of the rule that I have. It's kind of funny. We had this talk, and I don't remember who it was, but we were talking about, Twinkies growing up. Shawn and I remember the Twinkie box, and even rodents won't eat Twinkies, and insects won't either. It just sits there. It just doesn't go away. And another example, maybe we should probably rethink this too with our cycling when we ride our bikes. But our dog that we had, our last dog, loved apples. And we had a squeezable pack of applesauce in Shawn's bike bag before a race. And he ate that, but he would not eat any of the gels that he had packed.
These
little,
gels, basically.
He had nothing to do with it. So
sugar.
He
would eat it.
Yeah, we start talking about, well, maybe that's a good thing to think about, that if something isn't going to rot, maybe we shouldn't be ingesting it. So, we just keep those simple things in mind. And also, the fresher you eat food, I mean, if it's fruits and vegetables, or meat for that matter, I mean, the closer it is to the earth, and the less hands it has touched, it's probably healthier for us. So those are just things, you can do without having to just go crazy over all the little details. And I'm a detailed person. Imagine that. Shawn and I are pharmacists, so we get hung up in a lot of rabbit holes of details. But just keep it very simple. Keep it whole foods. Keep it, good sources of protein, and make it easy.
Yeah. Eat real food. It really is that easy. Eat real food. If it doesn't rot, don't eat it. Those are just the simple things, when it comes to eating. And I will say this, that focus on protein, animal protein, I'm going to say. And if you eat your animal protein first and eat anything else later, you're going to be filled up and you're going to be satiated for longer and probably eat overall less calories. I know there's many times where I'm full on eggs or I'm full on steak, but there's potatoes there and I can still eat more potatoes. So it's just a reminder that if you can't eat the animal protein because you feel full, then the other stuff you probably shouldn't eat either. So that's it. That's it. And we just want to wish you all a happy new year. 2026 is going to be the best year yet. Those are just facts. We're super excited for it, and we're super excited for you guys to be part of our journey. We could not do this without you. So please follow us, like this, share it. We stream on Facebook, YouTube, X, Rumble, LinkedIn. So please go to those pages, go to the podcast forums, like, share, comment, and ask questions. And we will see you guys all in 2026. Looking forward to a great year. So tune in to our regularly scheduled podcast Monday. You don't want to miss this with Dr. Nicole Lavatt. We're talking about estrogen and blood clots. Does oral estrogen cause blood clots? You have to tune in for that one. So thank you all. See you Monday, 12:30 to 1:30 Pacific Standard Time. Thank you.